is, where did the character get the lie from in the first place, right? Why do they believe this so strongly? Why do they allow this to color their worldview? The reason is the ghost. The ghost is the one piece of backstory you need. You don't need to write your character's entire autobiography. You don't need to know their entire upbringing or everything that's happened to them. All you need to know is what their ghost is. And the ghost is a very bad thing that happened to your character. What I call, mocking Lord of the Rings, the one trauma that rules them all. The ghost is a very bad thing that happened to your character in the past that is often kept secret from other characters and the audience until the reveal, which is later in the story. The ghost is essentially this very bad thing caused your character to develop this lie, right? So if the lie is, I can't trust other people, maybe that character's ghost is that, they were abandoned by their family as a child. And now they believe you can't trust anybody because of that, right? So the ghost explains why the character believes this lie and why they believe it so strongly, and why they are so blind to how detrimental this lie is to them. It's because they've had this traumatic experience in the past that reinforce that this is the way the world works, and cause them to believe this lie. So basically, the ghost is the great fear that's holding the character back from action. The hero's desire drives him forward, his ghost drives him back. To add extra power to the ghost, it is really good if you can make it so that the ghost itself is the results of the character's mistake, or the character blames themselves for it. An example that I will also use later is the story Avatar. I don't know how many of you have seen that. Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's a TV show. Aang, who's the main character, his destiny is to save the world. But he disappeared for 100 years. And the world completely went to crap in that time. When he comes back, he's really guilty. He feels really guilty because he knows there's been 100 years of war, all because he ran away and he disappeared, and people suffered because of his actions. So if you can make the ghost the result of a character's mistake or something that the character blames themselves for, then that is great. As another example, say you have a character and their mother died giving birth to them, right? Well, something like that is something that the character's probably going to blame themselves for. They might have some lie about themselves, about their own worth as a person, because they feel like they killed their mother. So that's like a kind of a morbid example, but that's another example of how you can do this. So the character blames themselves for it. It makes the ghost doubly powerful. So I don't know how many people have heard of this. So are there any questions on the ghost, how you use it, or how it's connected to the other pieces of this framework?
This is new for us, Destiny, so this is very exciting. Does the ghost have to be something that needs to exist since page 1, or something the character comes to realize early on as part of the plot?
So I would say, so the character who has the ghost is going to be aware, they're going to remember this traumatic thing that happened. And when I say traumatic thing, by the way, it doesn't have to be something super as morbid as someone's mother dying in childbirth. It could be something as simple as, they got bullied on the playground as a kid. That could be the ghost. It could be something as simple as they had a bad relationship with their sister growing up. It could be something like more small scale like that. But the ghost is, how do I put this? The character's aware of the ghost and that this bad thing happened to them, but they're not connecting it to the lie. They don't realize I have this worldview because of this bad thing that happened to me. They're not going to connect those dots until later on in the story.
Assume they have.
So they're aware of this thing that happened, but they don't make the connection, if that makes sense.
Assume they have gone to therapy.
Yeah. Yeah. And part of the way they realize, like, oh, this bad thing that happened to me is the reason I think this way, is through the conflict that you put them through, and the events that you put them through over the course of the story. So, but usually other characters in the story will not be aware that this thing happened to the main character until later on. Usually there's some kind of reveal around the second or third act. And then, the backstory comes to light and the other characters are like, oh, what? And explains so much to them. Any other questions? Okay. So now we're getting to what I call fault lines. And I know this is a lot, what I can also do is I have this all written in like a PDF document. I can also send this to Nia to send to all of you guys so that you can not just watch this video over and over again, but if you are a reader and a visual learner, you can also see it in print. And that should also help keep track so that if you need to create a character, you can just take that pamphlet and flip through it and you'll know exactly what to do.
Destiny, I have the PDF attached to the calendar invite that they have.
Perfect.
So I'll make sure to also include it on the website in our daily coaching video.
Perfect. So yeah, so you have available that available, which should guide you through this whole process pretty easily. So fault lines are what I call insecurities, flaws, and mistakes. And all of these are born out of the ghost. So as you'll see with this framework, each piece builds upon the last piece. It's like you're making a castle out of building blocks. So the lie leads to the want. The want helps you determine the need. The need helps you determine, the lie also helps you determine the ghost. And then the ghost helps you determine all these other things about your character. So they get more and more fleshed out with each step. So now you know what the character's worldview is, you know what drives them, you know what they want, you know what they need, you know what happened to them that caused them to go down this path in the first place. Now let's flesh out their behaviors. And those behaviors are like separated into insecurities, flaws, and mistakes. So as an example, the ghost is this character was sent away to boarding school. And so the lie was, it's my own fault I got sent to boarding school. People just don't love me because I'm flawed. The insecurities they might develop as a result of this lie and this ghost is they might reject emotional intimacy. They might often feel out of control. They might have issues around self-worth. Their flaws, in order to compensate for those insecurities, right? Because flaws, whenever, for example, if you say something to somebody and that person gets angry, it's because you touched a nerve. It's because you touched an insecurity, because you touched something about that person that they're not revealing to you, but that clearly is a very emotionally charged for them. If you make fun of somebody for, I don't know, for the way they dress or something like that, and they get super angry about it, particularly if you're like friendly with this person, they get super angry about it, you know you've touched a nerve. And when someone says, oh, I must have touched a nerve or pressed that person's buttons, basically what you mean is you're touching on an insecurity that that character doesn't want to reveal. So flaws are things that the characters come up with in order to compensate for the insecurities, or in order to shield their insecurities from the outside world, so that people can't tell that they're insecure in the first place. So flaws, in order to hide these insecurities, might be they develop a tendency to lie. They might become hypocritical, judgmental, and cold, because they don't want people to know that they don't feel like they're worth very much. They don't want people to know that they're afraid of getting close. So instead, they just act cold, judgmental, and push people away. Mistakes someone might develop because of this flaws is they might have an affair and betray their partner. They might betray a coworker who's up for a promotion by lying on them or by doing something to somehow sabotage them. So as you can see, there's like a direct progression between these two things right here and the insecurities. And then the insecurities help you figure out what flaws they would have, and what flaws help you figure out what mistakes they might make. And this can be a lot. So I have another shortcut for this for you. It is this book. I cannot recommend this book enough. It's called The Emotional Wound Thesaurus, A Writer's Guide to Psychological Traumas by Angela Ackerman and Becca Puglisi. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this already, but it is such a lifesaver when it comes to this stage of developing a character, because they literally just have these listed out. They'll say, they'll have a bunch of ghosts listed, like this happened to this character, this happened to this character, and it'll just show you what insecurities, flaws that the character will develop from having that particular ghost. And so highly recommend it, especially if you get stuck. Like, there's no reason to stay stuck. Just pick up that book, flip through it, find the character's ghost in there. There's a million different ghosts that they have in there. Find the character's ghost, and then you can just take the insecurities and flaws that the character has directly from that book. So that makes this more involved section a lot easier. And the last piece is the super objective. This is something I coined and that I didn't make up, so don't look it up because you're not going to come up with anything. because it is something that